Hey everybody, I'm Candice Adkins with WHUR.com, and I'm here at the Gala, a seat at the table, and we're live here.
Be part of the black media because there's so many stories that need to be told that we can talk about. Stories of pain, stories of joy, stories of just informing the country about what's going on. So it's a really valuable time to be in black media.
Black media speaks to the black culture, and we know the nuances and the things that are important for our communities. As a journalist, I've been able to interview a wide assortment of people, the who's who of Hollywood and of the entertainment industry. And on the Sherry Show, we've been able to do some of the same things. I mean, last week alone, we had two legends. We started our week with Patti LaBelle. We ended our week with Smokey Robinson. Ask me about my dream guest. It is still Oprah Winfrey. I want Oprah Winfrey to walk through those doors and say, Sherry, Oprah's here. But we need black media. We need black stories told because we understand the needs and the wants of our communities, and nobody speaks to it better than the black journalists.
For black media, we need black media. That's for darn sure. So it's important that we support any black-owned media spaces. You know, all of these entities are very important, and we have to keep putting our dollars behind them, and we also have to keep watching them, giving them the eyeballs, subscribing, and all of that. Because if we don't, then our news will be eroded, our media will be eroded, and then what happens? Then we have to get our news from them, and you know that's going to be tainted and skewed in one way. So
I think our stories matter because it celebrates our excellence. You know, one thing I believe deeply, and I said it when we were elected, was that I want for everybody, all of our children, to understand that every room they are in, they're not there because of someone's benevolence or because of someone's kindness, right? They're not there because of a social experiment. They're there because they belong there, and because that room would be incomplete if they weren't there. And the way we can get everyone to understand that is know your history, know your stories, know your roots, know how hard people had to work in order for you to get there. And if you understand that, there's nothing that you can't do. And so I really do believe even this warfare that we're seeing on information and books and knowledge, it's not about making people uncomfortable. It's about helping people not to understand their own history and understand their own power. And in the state of Maryland, we are not going to do that. We're going to make sure that people understand.
Well, listen, having our black stories being told by black journalists and being able to celebrate our successes, but also work together on our challenges in a uniquely black way, in a way that, you know, has personality to it, something that you've had these experiences. So when we hear about Howard or other organizations being able to talk about challenges and overcome issues, because we live it as black people. And so I really appreciate what's happening here, and black journalists being able to tell stories and have the capacity and the freedom to do so in a professional way.
You know, your stories matter because at the end of the day, you're the ones that are helping people understand the truth. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of people trying to misguide intentionally. You're keeping it real, you're telling the truth, and you're keeping your listeners informed.
I'm working on a project that I'm really excited about. It's a podcast, documentary style podcast called Being Black the 80s. It comes out in June, and we're going to be telling the story of black-ish socio-political issues through the lens of important songs from the 80s. And we're going to have the 80s come out in June. I'm almost done with working on a series about the 70s, which will come out in August. We're going to do a series about the 90s. So, I mean, it's going to be a sort of amazing discussion of black history, recent black history, through the lens of the music that matters to us. So it's going to be really, really amazing.
Well, you know, I was a college student during Freaknik, and I lived that time. And so, you know, I know a lot of people are nervous about this story. It's going to come out and going to like, am I going to be in the Freaknik documentary? Because, you know, we were having fun as teenagers, as college students. But I think it'll show that Atlanta, you know, has a history of being forward thinking and having fun, but also that we also grow up at times and be able to do the work that we need to do as adults. And so I think it's going to be a way to look at the history of Atlanta, but also know that we've progressed to where we don't have a Freaknik anymore, but we have great festivals, great entertainment, and, you know, be able to see some familiar faces in that documentary, I'm sure.
As I move through the streets, once we started this journey with the Sherry Show, I've had people say the most remarkable things to me. People say they feel like they have a daily appointment with their best friends, because Sherry and I are best friends outside of the fact that we work together. People say that we give them escapism and joy, and that's really us achieving in our goal. We started this show because we wanted to bring joy and laughter and happiness to the homes of people. Sherry always says that we were not built to take on all the negativity and the toxicity and all the drama that's going on in our culture. And so if our show can be that escapism for people, it gives me the driving force to get up and do it every day, especially because that phone goes off at 5:45 because we're live out in New York in the morning, and I ain't a morning person, so yeah.
I mean, you just got to keep in mind that the work that you're doing is super important. Journalism is incredibly important, right? It is absolutely essential to have a democracy. It's absolutely essential to understand the world around us. So even when it's a hard day as a journalist, even when you feel disappointed, just know that the work you're doing is incredibly important.
Yeah, all across the country, you hear about gun violence and violence, and a lot of the violence is intrapersonal, meaning cousin on cousin, brother on brother, girlfriend, boyfriend, people that know each other. And so what we've been trying to do is teach people how to de-escalate, how to have conflict resolution, because one thing that we can do is to be able to have more policing, which we don't need. We don't want that. We want to make sure that we have a balanced approach to safety and justice. We want to have well-trained police officers to deal with the policing needs that we have to be able to bring down violent crime, but we also need to deal with the things that are societal problems, mental health, and inability for people to resolve conflicts. So that's what we're also doing, teaching peace and anti-violence and anti-retaliation, and also doing a lot of things with our youth. That's something that I'm really been working on, is working with the youth.
I say that the North Star for us, this is all about economics. This is about work, wages, and wealth. And how are we creating all three and pathways for all three for every single person in the state, making sure that they're being prepared and educated for the work of now and the work of the future, making sure they're getting fair wages for the work that they are doing. We shouldn't have people who are working jobs, in some cases multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line, and making sure we're giving people the opportunity to create generational wealth so they can pass something off to their children besides debt. So for us, this is economics. It's work, wages, and wealth, and that's the North Star for everything we're trying to get done.
For black women in media, my advice to them is to keep going. The road is not always easy, but nothing really in life is easy. To be mediocre is hard even. So, keep going, striving towards black excellence, and remember, it gets greater later.